The following contest is scheduled for one fall.
Hey guys, what's up? I'm Michael DePietro and this is One Fall. Let's hop right over to Raw. This week on Raw, the man Becky Lynch defended her Raw Women's Championship against the Empress of Tomorrow, Asuka. These two battled it out in arguably their best matchup yet, and the crowd was fully invested. After a few near-fall roll-ups, Becky was able to hit the rock bottom on Asuka for the victory. After the match, Shayna Baszler blindsided Lynch out of nowhere. She laid Becky out, attempted the Karafuda clutch, but instead threw her to the mat. Shayna then proceeded to bite the back of Becky's neck. She bit her so hard that when she came up, Baszler's mouth was a bloody mess.
I mean, that's nasty.
After driving herself to the hospital, Becky returns later the night with a message to Baszler.
Now you better find me before I find you.
Later in the night, Sarah Logan interrupts a backstage interview with Rhea Ripley. This leads to Sarah Logan calling Rhea Ripley out to the ring. The match was a squash with Ripley putting Logan away with the Riptide. After the match, Rhea expressed that she wants to know what Charlotte's answer is to her challenge. Charlotte notes that after NXT TakeOver Portland this Sunday, Ripley may not even be the champion. Instead of answering the challenge, the Queen leaves the nightmare with this. In a backstage interview, Ruby was asked why such animosity toward Liv Morgan. Ruby claims that she knows the real Liv Morgan and that she will always be a follower. Riot says she came back to put Liv Morgan in her place to show her who she will always be and to remind her that she strikes when Ruby says so. Now let's talk about NWA Power. This week on NWA Power, the living legend Melina was forced to prove that she deserves a shot at the NWA Women's World Championship. Proof is what they wanted and proof is what they got as Melina defeated Tasha Steelz in a legendary fashion. After the match, Melina had this to say to her.
I am the living legend. I shouldn't have to prove myself to anybody.
Melina lets everyone know that she proves it every time she walks into an arena and every time she steps into a ring. She then announces that next week it's going to be Melina versus Thunder Rosa for the title. Now let's talk about AEW Dark. There were two women's matches this week on AEW Dark featuring the debut of two new signings. The first women's match of the night was the AEW Women's World Champion Riho versus Shoko Nakajima. The two had a very great match, but ultimately the champ came out victorious after a couple meteoras. Later in the night, Hikaru Shida faced off against the other new signing, Cassandra Golden. Golden gave Hikaru Shida a run for her money, but it wasn't enough to put her away. Shida picked up the victory after delivering a psycho knee to Cassandra. Now let's talk about Impact Wrestling. On Impact this week, we learned that Suzy and Su Yung have become one, and that was an eerie backstage segment involving Suzy, Jessica Havoc, and Father James Mitchell. Fast forward to later in the night, and we saw Su Yung dragging Father Mitchell from a noose and locking him back inside the undead realm. In what started off as an interview with Tessa Blanchard ended up being a brawl between the World Champ and the X Division Champ when Ace Austin tried to get under Blanchard's skin. These two are set to face off on February 22nd at Sacrifice. In the main event on Impact, Taya Valkyrie put her Impact Knockouts Championship on the line against the #1 contender Jordynne Grace. These two women brought the fight in a hard-hitting match. Taya tried everything she could to walk in and walk out as the champion. At one point, she powerbombed Grace in the steel steps at ringside and then delivered the Road to Valhalla to her on the stage. In the closing moments of the match, Jordynne hit Taya with the clothesline and ascended to the top turnbuckle. Bravo covered Valkyrie in hopes to protect her, but no avail as Grace landed a flying back senton splash. Bravo rolled to the outside, allowing Jordynne Grace to deliver the Grace Driver to Taya for the victory. Jordynne Grace is the new Impact Knockouts champion. This week on NXT, Candice LeRae took on Dakota Kai in what was a fun match to watch. Kai was able to build some momentum for her match this Sunday as she picked up the win via roll-up. After the match, Tegan Nox came out to defend Candice from being attacked with the ring bell by Kai. Tegan and Dakota brawled it out until broken up by several officials. Tegan Nox and Dakota Kai will face off this Sunday at NXT TakeOver Portland in a street fight. Later that night, Bianca Belair faced off against Santana Garrett. Bianca made short work of Santana after hitting her with the spear, then eventually delivering the KOD for the win. Post-matchup, Belair grabbed the mic and expressed anger about Rhea and Charlotte looking past her to WrestleMania. Rhea comes to the ring, tells her that she's not looking past her, and that at NXT TakeOver Portland this Sunday, she's going to go right through her. Things quickly get physical and Bianca dishes out a KOD to Ripley, sending her a message loud and clear to the NXT Women's Champion. Now let's talk about AEW Dynamite. Over on AEW Dynamite this week, Tony conducted an interview with Dr. Britt Baker. By the way, did you know she's a dentist?
What?
When asked about her actions last week, Britt said that she was doing Yuka a favor.
And I took that tooth out for free. I extracted her tooth for free.
She gave her thoughts on the upcoming Women's Championship match and insulted the fans in Texas. Later that night, Riho defended her AEW Women's Champion against the native beast Nyla Rose. The two battled it out in what was a great match. Riho gave Nyla everything she had. Unfortunately, it wasn't enough to overcome the native beast as Rose would deliver the Beast Bomb for the win. Nyla Rose was crowned the new AEW Women's Champion. Now let's talk about Friday Night SmackDown. A Moment of Bliss kicked off SmackDown with this week with the #1 contender Carmella as a special guest. Carmella expressed her frustration and disappointment about Bayley's change in attitude the past few months. This led to Bayley coming out and pretty much trashing everybody. Carmella stood up, got in Bayley's face, and demanded that they have their title match right then and there. The two squared it off in the ring and put on a great match. In the closing moments of the match, Carmella went for the code of silence, but Bayley was able to counter it and used the ropes to pin Mella for the victory. After the match, Bayley kept attacking Carmella until Naomi came out to Mella's aid. Later that night, backstage, Bayley announced that at Super Showdown she will be defending her SmackDown Women's Championship. It was also announced that next week Carmella and Naomi will face off to decide who faces Bayley at the Super Showdown. Later that night, Mandy Rose is shown sitting at the restaurant when a man approaches her and puts his hand on her shoulder. We were all expecting Otis, however, Mandy looks up and sees that it's actually Dolph Ziggler. Moments later, the camera shows Otis walking to the restaurant with roses in his hand. He sees Dolph sitting at the table with Mandy, and you can see that his heart instantly breaks. Next week on SmackDown, maybe we'll see what Mandy has to say about what happened at the restaurant. Also, a special shout out follow to We Watch Women's Wrestling. Follow their channel for tons of awesome content related to women's wrestling updated daily. That's all the time we have for today. If you enjoyed this episode of One Fall, be sure to like and share this video. I love feedback, so feel free to drop a comment below. To stay up to date with all things women wrestling, make sure you follow us on Twitter. Until next time, I'm Michael DePietro, and this is One Fall.